All right, let's take a look at what happens when we do a long exposure with low ISO. So let's take a look at a photograph that's been shot that way. We'll start with this shot. We've got a couple here. So this is a 10-second exposure at 5.6. And this image here is, no, that's a high ISO. So here is 10 seconds, 5.6, 24 millimeter, ISO 100. Now, in ideal conditions, this is the way to shoot low light photographs. But you can't always do that because sometimes you've got things that move. If you're shooting sports, concerts, any sort of thing where there's motion, car races at night, you need to have the high ISO to freeze that action. If you're shooting landscapes, architectural shots, those types of things, you can get away with doing a tripod and doing a long exposure. So let's take a look at this shot here. So as I zoom in on this shot, you guys will notice that there does not appear to be a lot of noise just at the 1:1. And if I start zooming in from there, really not a lot of noise. But we will take a look at how the automation worked when we get back to it in a second. So let's start with the white balance. In this shot here, there is mixed lighting. There are different lights. There's some sort of a sodium vapor light out here, shining light there. There's a bunch of like maybe tungsten or fluorescent lights in some of these office rooms. Definitely some fluorescent out here with the green cast. So we need to figure out what's going to work best for this shot. So you could grab the white balance tool, and again, like if I click on the side of the building here, it will go and it'll adjust it one way, which went kind of towards the green. If I click the sodium vapor here, it adjusts it to the other direction. If I go back to the fluorescent adjustment here, it throws in some magenta. So this is one of those shots where you're gonna have to kind of look at the nuance of this and just slide the color temperature slider around to see what you like. And so it's going to be like, do you want to cool it or do you want to warm it? I'm going to pull it towards the cool side a little bit, not go too far, but just give it a good starting point. I'm liking that. This shot looks like I need to probably rotate it a touch. So I'm going to go ahead and just give it a scunch of rotation. I'm going to grab these tools here and do some adjustments on the keystoning of the buildings because there's just a hint of it. And I'll click apply. That squares it out a little bit. I'm liking that. So this image now is giving me a kind of a nice strength to what it's got. I like what's going on. Let's get the exposure a little bit. I'll go ahead and maybe bring it up a touch, but then I'll go ahead and pull down my highlights. And this time I'll play around with what color saturation does to this shot. And that makes it look too cartoonish, so I'm probably going to only maybe add just a hint in there just to punch it. And then we're good to go to take a look at refining it. So we go into refine. Once again, we open the noise reduction, and you'll see by default it went ahead and it cranked up the color and the luminance sliders to 50 when it was imported in. This is the only thing that always seems to be a constant that always seems to get adjusted. So we're going to zoom in and we're going to try to find a low light area where there seems to be maybe some appearance of grain. Let's take a look. This is kind of a fun shot because there's a gentleman here reading a newspaper, so we'll zoom in just a little bit more. And while we're on that, then I'm going to go ahead and pull back color, see how bad the color is in this area, and you'll notice that when I pull back color, there's not a lot. So in this instance, I probably could pull it up somewhere around 25 instead of where it was at 50. Now we'll pull back luminance. And once again, we'll take a look at how much grain we have in there. And because it was a long ISO, a long exposure on a low ISO, there is not a lot of grain in this shot. And as I pull that back up, you can see that there is not much of a change here. Once again, it's almost negligible. So as much as I'd love to show you some adjustments, it goes to show that the low ISO long exposure shots really do not have a lot of issues with this. So you can adjust, but you may not find a lot. This is where now you would go in and maybe just start doing some like more unique adjustments, like applying a bunch of masks to different areas to adjust for color balances and stuff. Go to the adjust, go in and create a new adjustment layer, go in and grab a brush to create a mask, maybe a smart brush, and go in and say, okay, let's grab this area here. You notice that every time I keep going over this, it's only grabbing the blue areas. And once it's done that, if I go ahead and push down, I can see where it applied it. And then I can go ahead in this instance and let's adjust the color temperature here. And I will go ahead and pull this up. And I can kind of go in and kind of get rid of what has happened with that light itself. It looks like I still need to add some more areas to this that appear to have had that blue. Appears to be something over here. The smart mask is very powerful. So now it's adjusted all the blues that got into all these different areas based on what I'm clicking, and the adjustment still needs some fine tuning because it looks like it went a little green on me, so I'll kick in some magenta now to counter for that. And I can go in now maybe and do a removal of some of it, and sort of like as I go back and forth with the erase brush and take it away up here, leave that alone. Yeah. And so you guys can see how you can play around with that. I can also go back in. I mean, if I really wanted to, I can go in and start doing all the individual windows and just kind of go crazy. So once I've got that done, I could go back to the background. If I wanted to adjust for all these windows, I could go in once again and cool those down a little bit more. But once again, it cools down too much of the shot. So once again, I would want to go to the create a new mask. Then I would go in and paint in new areas, such as all the windows, and just start getting them all everywhere. And once you do this, and you get all these highlighted areas, then what you can do there, like on that side, now I can go ahead and cool down just that side. And get those windows looking a little bit better, but it takes a lot of refining. If this was a shot for an architectural magazine or for promotional purposes for the city of Honolulu, then they would go in and spend a lot of time to really kind of fine-tune this and kick it up. But in our instance, we don't have to. So there you go, a long exposure, low ISO, adjustments.